Okay, so introduction, just so you know who you're speaking with. My name's Crystal. I'm a behaviour support practitioner currently, but previously I was a teacher. And when I was studying to be a teacher, I also worked as a team leader at a childcare centre. When I was studying externally in my mother's classroom, who was also a teacher. So during my study breaks, I'd be helping out amongst all the junior primary classrooms. So when I finished my teaching degree, I was already somewhat experienced and ready to go, which is excellent. I've done 2 years of contract teaching in special schools across a variety of classrooms and 4 years as lead teacher in a complex behaviours unit before going into behaviour support practitioner role. I also have a child on the spectrum. I fully felt everything Sonia was saying about everything we go through as parents. Sometimes people will say to me, your job's hard, like what you do is hard, it must be really difficult. It's not. My job as a behaviour support practitioner is easy in comparison to looking after a child with a disability. Easy. So everything else is easy in comparison. So, next slide. What is behaviour? Any thoughts? Because often people have quite a limited perspective, and Mark did give it away earlier, so anyone that was listening to Mark would know the answer. There's a test. Anyone? Can anyone name a behaviour? The first person that names a behaviour gets a chocolate. Can anyone name a behaviour?
Oh, you actually brought chocolate.
I actually brought chocolates because I'm a behaviour practitioner. Good one. Yes. Anyone else? Yes. Anyone else? No one else?
It's a way of communicating how they're feeling.
Go Shreya. Sorry for my throwing. Yeah, so, okay, we can click through. So it is, I'm really surprised because a lot of people will always say the challenging behaviours, the hitting, the kicking, the biting, the absconding, the peeing on people, the smearing, the everything like that. I've experienced it all. There's nothing, well, I feel like I have. As a teacher, I used to go to work with a spare change of clothes in the back of my car. So it was a very good chance that I might need to change at some point through the day. And shoes that are machine washable are very important too. Okay, but it is also communication and communication deficits, being able to communicate our needs with each other. It's sleeping habits, and this is foundational. 70% of children on the spectrum have sleeping problems. And that this decreases our ability to engage and learn new skills, and it increases our challenging behaviours. If you're a child on the spectrum who's not getting the sleep that they need, it's foundational. And this is something behaviour support can help with. Okay, there's eating behaviours, regulation, self-awareness, relaxation skills, anxiety. This one's huge and it sits really close to me. My son has extensive anxiety and it affects his everyday. And so it affects my everyday, but it is so important and it's something I'm really passionate about. So there's programs and things we can do to help anxiety, and of course that it affects everything. It affects your ability to socialise, to learn, to be able to go to school and hop out the car without crying all the way. That's not so. It affects everything. Social skills. And awareness of others, developing those friendships, that is hard for children with disabilities. General development across all skills. So behaviour support can also look at those independent skills. It can look at tidying of the room, for instance, getting dressed, brushing hair, showering, toileting. Using a microwave. Skill development, because the more skills we impart to our children with disabilities, the more positive skills they have, the less need there is to engage in those challenging behaviours, and often we see behaviours occurring when there's skill deficits. Fears, phobias, play skills. Sometimes it's difficult to learn those basic play skills right down at the foundational level, and sensory behaviours. Sensory is another huge one. Yeah, huge, and that's something we can work with too. Yeah. So what is behaviour support then? Yeah. How do you get behaviour support? You get a really good support coordinator. So almost all behaviour is learned behaviour. So everything we do is, whether we realise we're learning it or not, me turning on a light switch is a learned behaviour, because one day it was dark, I turned it on, lights came on, I'm reinforced by that. Next time I walk into the room, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to turn on that light switch because I know it works. Everything we do is learned. So when we do a functional behaviour analysis, we look at the mediators involved. So maybe if there's a sibling and they're watching the sibling, and so when they engage in a similar behaviour, they get a similar response, or they're looking, or so we do a functional behaviour analysis and we assess every part of that child's life or that adult's life. It doesn't have to be a child. And we work out where the behaviour is coming from. Is it because it's being modelled? Is it because it's a way to get some sort of social interaction, or maybe it's an escape mechanism, or maybe it's because there's a deficit in communication. They don't know how to communicate something, or they don't know how to respond. I'm going to do some behavioural therapy on myself and get better sleep patterns because I have very poor sleep patterns and I'm a neurotypical adult. So behaviour support is for everyone. Everyone engages in behaviour of some sort. Some people might be flicking their pens a little bit. They might be regulating themselves. I'm terrible, very poor at like sitting and listening to lectures, and I'll draw and doodle on a piece of paper if I can, and that keeps me regulated. Every single thing we do and every single person is engaging in behaviour. Majority of it's learnt, and we analyse how it's learnt, or why they're engaging that behaviour, what's happening in the environment, what's happening for the individual, what skills do they have, what skills don't they have.
So that your job is to assess that and put things into action.
Yes.
For kids who, okay.
Yeah. And that analysis is so, so important. So I'll read it for the people that are far away. Behaviour support is the assessment, planning and delivery of supports and programs aimed, designed and systematically implemented to assist with skill development, maintaining satisfying personal relationships, participating in the community, expressing personal preferences and choices, and the reduction of challenging behaviours. So like this is our cycle, so what we're talking about. So this is where I would start an assessment. So I'll be talking to everyone that's involved. I talk to speechies, OTs, carers, support coordinators, anyone or everyone that's had involvement in that child's life. And I will do an observation of the child as well, or the adult. If they're verbal, I can talk to them. And that assessment is so important to analyse where the behaviour is coming from. For instance, I have a client who at school, he started throwing things around the room. And everyone thought it was attention. Okay, this is not okay, you can't throw things around the room. He got sent home, he got suspended for 2 days. And what they didn't realise is that the function of no one analysed the behaviour, because people just make assumptions, it's easy to assume. The function was actually escape. And so when he came back, as soon as he came back, he started throwing things around the room. Because no one had done a functional analysis of the behaviour, so they've just reinforced this behaviour. So now this works. But for the child that was for attention, then that might have extinguished the behaviour. So for him, he was loving it. He went home and played his Xbox a lot, and got to go out, because they organised for him when he wasn't in school. He got to go out on this with support workers to do all sorts of activities. So he was loving it. So his behaviours have increased because there wasn't that appropriate assessment done. So what I've done is come in and I've put that functional analysis in. When he comes home, Xbox is not a thing. We're going to do some work at home because it's difficult at home. But also, why is he acting out? Why? So not just looking at the consequence, why is that happening to begin with? Well, he's having difficulty accessing the curriculum. He doesn't know how to ask for help, so this is a skill deficit. So rather than just punishing or because it's positive behaviour support, of course, rather than just looking at that consequence, well, what's going on for that young person? Teaching them some functional communication skills. How do I ask for help? How do I recognise that I want help? So all of those things are critical. Then we go into the planning, so we plan programs. So that was the functional communication training and those sorts of things. Implementation, that's not just working with the participant, it's working with the families and the carers. I work with speechies and OTs and make sure that we're all coming together, because multidisciplinary approach is a fancy word that a lot of people use, not a lot of people do. We can't just have OT, speech, behaviour, or all these different people. What's the point of a fantastic behaviour program if I'm not using the language at their level and their communication style? So I need to liaise with the speech. So that's integral. Okay, and evaluation, always evaluate the programs. It's the normal planning and evaluation cycle, because we want to see, is it working? Do we need to change it? Do we need to add to it? The goals are achieved. What are we going to do next? So the 3E model that I function on is empathise. I think empathy is key. If we want to provide meaningful relationships and therapies to these clients and the families, empathy is key. Engaging with the families and the participants, and educate. And education is so important. As this boy in the school who's been subsequently reinforced for behaviours just because, not because the teachers are bad teachers, they just didn't know. And I've got a lot of clients under DCP care in accommodation services, and things are quite difficult there. And it's not because the carers are not doing a good job or they don't care, it's just they don't know. And so it's about teaching everyone around, not just the participant, but everyone around. So assessment, we've already spoken about the foundational assessment. This is key because it identifies everything. It identifies your speech. It identifies all areas of development, challenging behaviours. It covers everything and makes a good recommendation and advocacy to the NDIS about what clients need. And it pulls everything together. So rather than looking at individualised areas, pulls all the needs together and considers the participant as a whole. And the full assessment, so this is for a comprehensive behaviour support plan. This is where the functional behaviour analysis comes in. Restrictive practice assessment if it's needed. There are many participants out there who need this support and not a lot known about it. ABC data analysis, so that's another form of analysing behaviours and the function. And interviews and therapy reports. When I get a new client, I say send me everything. I want to read everything because the more I know, the better I can help. Okay, this is just some of the therapies and things that I've run before. I couldn't all fit it all on one page, and I didn't want to make the writing too small, but you can see that positive behaviour therapy, it's split up in two main areas. We got your proactive strategies. Those are all the things that the skill building, the things we're doing beforehand to reduce challenging behaviours. And reactive strategies, so they're the skills and the strategies we're going to teach amidst a challenging behaviour, for instance, or a heightened episode. So the ecological strategies, these are key. These are the things that we put in. We make environmental modifications or suggestions or set things in place before behaviours occur to reduce the likelihood of behaviours occurring. So with that boy that got suspended, if we put in some strategies around to support him being able to ask for help, maybe it was a sensory thing as well, he's becoming overwhelmed. So reduce that, promote the environment for learning. So that one's key. I've done a functional analysis on a girl who absconds recently, and through data analysis we noticed that she was absconding on Mondays and Thursday nights. So she would run away from the carer's home and onto roads, and she's actually putting her life into danger. It's quite problematic, so we're very concerned. But we were able to do this analysis and we realised Mondays and Thursdays. And further exploration of that, we realised she doesn't really like the carers on Mondays and Thursdays. She doesn't have a bond with them. And she's also bored. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in some more really exciting fun activities based on her interests. And we're going to do some rotation of carers and make sure she's around people that she feels safe and secure with. She's with rotational carers. She has a traumatic background. So we need to take in consideration of where she's coming from and how she's feeling. So ecological strategies are pretty key. Skills teaching and positive programming. So functional replacement is something I always look at. So looking at what the challenging behaviour is, I've got some more examples from, and replacing, so let's see. All right. Another client who's been, he's high functioning. He's been chastised and reprimanded from his carers for inappropriate texts to his friends and neighbours' wives. And it's clearly impacting because the carers have people knocking on their door saying, what is this boy doing? He's sending messages to my wife. He's sending messages like, show me your boobs, I want to go out with you, things like that. So clearly inappropriate. The carers are quite distressed to respond to these neighbours. But looking at the behaviour further, what he's actually trying to do is trying to make a connection. He would like friends, he would like a girlfriend, but he doesn't have those skills. So he's acting out in this challenging way, but because he hasn't been given the functional skills to teach him how to make those connections. So we've put in a program called Incident-Based Social Skills Training, where we break down that and we teach him, okay, this is what you can say, this is what you can do. And we do role playing and behavioural therapy sessions around that. Another example is, back in my teaching days, I was down on the floor helping a child to do up their shoes. From behind, I had another student come up and hammer fist me or punch me in the nose. I didn't see it coming. So my fault, I should have been more aware of my surroundings. Now, what had happened with this poor boy though, he's non-verbal. In a busy classroom, as I said, it's complex behaviour unit, it's noisy, it's busy, there's 13 staff in there and 13 students. It's lots of stuff is going on. And this boy would get overwhelmed with the noise and the things that was happening. But because he was non-verbal, he couldn't say, hey, I need a break. I need to get out of here. So he became aggressive. And I was the closest person there, lucky me. So what we did there is we taught him another functional communication skill, and also teaching him how to recognise when I'm feeling stressed or upset. And when he's stressed and upset, he can pass this card that says, I need to escape. And a staff member will take you outside. And so you can have that time, because he would settle then. So that's really key. So that functional replacement. Focus support strategies, that's your reinforcement strategies. Some people call them rewards, that's different. But it's actually quite complex. I could speak for hours about it and I won't, because we don't have that time. But it's a way to get shape behaviour really quickly. It's not long lasting though, that's why we've got to put the other things alongside it with it. We've got to teach the skills as well. And situational supports, as I mentioned, is what you can do in a challenging situation. So what it looks like is direct behaviour therapy with the client, if that's what suits them. It's no hard and fast rule, it's about what's working for the client. It's parent and caregiver training. Care team meetings. This is especially in accommodation service with rotational carers. Therapist meeting, I like to get therapists together. If there's other therapists involved, I try and hassle them a lot and find out exactly what's going on so we can all work together. Toileting program and specialised support. So maybe you might think they don't need a positive behaviour plan, but they do need help with their toileting because they're 8, 9 and they're still not toileting, and I'm concerned about that. Data analysis. I love data analysis. Again, I'll talk about that another time. Incident report analysis. So sometimes there's a challenging incident that comes up, even though we're putting all our strategies in. What do we do then? So you can write down what's happened, and so I get accommodation services particularly send it to me, and I'll do an analysis of it and say, okay, this is looking really good, this looks good here, but we can see that this is happening, and perhaps try and put this strategy in. So that ongoing guidance. Modelling, we recently sent out a behaviour therapist to an accommodation service at 10 o'clock at night to 12 p.m. at night, because that's when behaviours were occurring. We wanted to get some modelling of strategies. So it's about being flexible. We go into schools, but we do whatever we need to. Reliability checking. So checking if you've got a client in rotational care with rotational carers. I want to make sure that everyone knows what they're doing and if more training is necessary. Yeah, no, that's good. And just a special mention to DCP clients, and I just really recognise the potential of complex behaviours that happen, because they come from often traumatic backgrounds. There's a lot going on. So I also participate in complex case review meetings and interagency plans. That is especially important if you've got a child who is involved with ambulance services or police or things like that. We want to make sure that they're on board too, and they know how to interact with these clients, because they don't always. That's it from me.